What is up, DTube? Steam blockchain. So today I want to talk about poor communism versus rich communism. So Karl Marx, he had some theories, some market theories. He wrote a book about it, but he did not understand that much about human behavior. So if you take the idea of communism, about sharing, it's a very utopian idea. It is a very utopian idea. And communism can be looked at in two different ways. So the way we've seen communism play out in the world has been when poor people take up the idea of communism. And basically when people want to share, people that don't have anything, when they want to share that. So it has been very ugly. Has been very, very ugly. The other idea would be, let's say in the past, if rich people would have taken up that idea of share, 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 then it would look way different. Then the ideas that Karl Marx had, it would create very, very interesting societies. But now we see that you get a growing number of rich people, and the difference between rich and poor is sort of growing in many ways. Even though everyone from one perspective also has it better than 100 years ago, because everyone can sort of, because everyone in many ways benefits when new technology arrive. But in terms of relative, or in terms of yeah, I mean, if you look at the number game, like some people are so much ahead of other people. So the current world we sort of living in, this capitalism era, it seems like it cannot go on forever. It eventually you need some kind of you need to look at the systems, like what kind of system do humans sort of want to live in. So maybe capitalism have another 15 years, but then you have to sort of start to look at what kind of systems do you want to have. So it can be very dangerous a lot when people promote, or when they just look at it from, just oh, it's just gonna be a utopia, or you see a lot of stuff about like luxury communism and all of that and those ideas. And what people have to sort of understand is it doesn't really matter what sort of technology we bring out if we still are super many people. It's going to be kind of hard still to sort of get that to work great, because this planet is still designed for a specific number of people. And if you sort of go over that limit, like let's say we had 5 billion tigers on this planet, it probably would be too much. So the ideas of like people sort of have to start to look at these ideas of, well, what kind of systems do sort of people want to live in eventually, because people will only want to share. People only want to share if they feel that they're sort of getting a good deal, which means a lot of sacrifices has to be done from a lot of people, in terms of that they actually have more an inclusive perspective of things. For example, a lot of stuff that people are producing now on the internet, it's not really something that anyone would love to pay for or monetize, because it's so low effort. And and people don't like getting a bad deal. So it's kind of interesting to see how this potentially can play out. So for example, let's say we get some form of, let's say rich people take up the idea of communism. And I mean that in short term we can say that basically that just means that they start to share a lot. That would be pretty interesting, but we sort of have to understand that it's quite more complex than that, because I mean, they can sort of, if they feel that other people are not grateful, they may turn their backs. So it is one of these things that is kind of interesting in the world. Because for example, when you start to have large populations, and intelligence starts to take on many different forms. And this is where sort of proof of brain has to come in, because there's going to be so much nuances and so on. And for example, if you have I mean, politicians have already realized this and started to play the game, where they sort of know the numbers and how they have to sort of play with the masses, because they understand they can't just say the truth, because then they're not gonna get any votes. So it becomes very interesting, where you realize the value of proof of brain, but you also realize that if the masses just runs really don't care, let's say they don't even care about proof of brain, then it doesn't really matter what you do. I mean, the power of the masses, the mob, they are just gonna do what they want to do, right? So what kind of system are we gonna have in the future? It's kind of interesting to really consider, because people are talking about different ideas about a mix of capitalism, a mix of communism, but it's going to take so much humbleness from people that sort of have less in many ways, that they have to sort of work themselves up. Because if a lot of, let's say, poor people work themselves up, then the people at the top, they're probably gonna more see the value and start to share more. But this can take on many different turns. So yeah, I mean, in the past, communism, this idea of sharing, it never really has worked out that great, because poor people took it up. Like, people that don't have anything, when they want to share, it becomes extremely ugly, right? So it's kind of interesting to see, how this eventually can play out, because the rich people probably eventually gonna realize that, well, if they see that, I mean, something that I realized, uh, something I realized a lot is, even if you like have a lot of value, it's not like you can make anyone do sort of anything, especially in terms of like work and stuff like that. Like, sure, you can do, let's say you can do a lot of surface layer stuff, but when we talk about deeper transformation of human beings, that is like, then you actually have to be more involved in the process, especially if you want to do that to, let's say, millions or billions of people. Then it takes a whole different way of looking at things. And of course, when a lot of capital flows in, that can also change things quite fast. But humans are really gonna have to look at this, like, what kind of economic system do they sort of want to live in eventually? Because all of them has sort of flaws and sort of problems. There's no real perfect system. So this can take on a lot of different turns, and people should know that you should probably work hard and be smart. And that's gonna take it so people have more, let's say, acceptance and appreciation for a human being, and a little bit allow sort of their truth to come forward. Because a big problem is, like, we have a lot of intelligence, we have a lot of intelligence in the world, but it's that people don't really allow and accept and appreciate that much. So you sort of get stuck on a lot of petty nonsense, a lot of intellect nonsense, where people are where they're just two minds going at each other, and they're not looking at the deeper layers as transformation of human beings. Like if you truly transform human beings, you're gonna get real proof of brain stuff that's actually going to have lasting value. So rich communism, that is great. Poor communism, that doesn't look good. So share is a great utopian idea, but it can play out in many different ways. So it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to play out, and it's going to be most fascinating to study the intelligence aspect. The intelligence aspect is going to become more interesting than so-called the number amount in many ways. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about today. So my main point here is we eventually have to change to some other form of economic system within the next 15 years probably. And it's probably not going to be as simple as people believe. Um, yeah, it's probably not going to be as simple as people think. It's probably going to be a lot of nuances but it's going to be fun to follow. Yeah, have a great day, DTube and Steam blockchain.